Take a deep breath for a moment, right now, wherever you are, whatever you're carrying in your heart, whatever weight you've been walking with in silence. This is not an accident. You didn't click on this video by chance. There is something inside you that is searching for peace, searching for answers, searching for a sign that God still sees you. And maybe, just maybe, you're tired of praying the same words over and over and wondering why nothing seems to change. You pray, but your heart still feels heavy. You ask, but heaven seems silent. You knock, but the door doesn't open the way you expected, and that can hurt because deep down we all want to know, is there a prayer that truly touches the heart of Jesus? Is there a prayer he simply cannot ignore? Is there a way to speak to God that moves him, not just with words, but with your soul? Tonight I want to take you on a journey, not a journey of noise, not a journey of religion without life, but a journey into the kind of prayer that reaches straight into the sacred heart of Christ. A prayer so simple, so humble, so pure, that Jesus himself responds to it, not because he must, but because love compels him to. And before we go deeper, if you feel peace just listening to these words, if your heart is already stirring, if you are searching for spiritual depth, truth, and transformation, subscribe to this channel now, because what we share here isn't entertainment, it's nourishment for the soul. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you prayed not to get something, but simply to be with God? When was the last time your prayer wasn't rushed, wasn't anxious, wasn't full of fear, but full of surrender? Most people pray like beggars at a door. Lord, give me this. Lord, fix that. Lord, take this pain away. And there is nothing wrong with asking, but there is a deeper kind of prayer, a prayer that doesn't start with give me, but starts with here I am. A prayer that doesn't try to control God, but allows God to change you. And this is where the mystery begins. Because Jesus does not respond first to perfect words. He responds to a surrendered heart. He does not listen first to long speeches. He listens to honesty. He does not move because of performance. He moves because of love. So let me tell you this gently. The prayer Jesus cannot refuse is not impressive. It is not poetic. It is not complicated. It is a prayer that comes from the deepest part of your soul and says, Jesus, I trust you. Not when life is easy, not when everything makes sense, but when nothing does. That sentence, those 3 words, Jesus, I trust you, they are not weak, they are powerful, because when you say them sincerely, you stop being in control, and you allow Jesus to be God. And that changes everything. Let me explain something important. Jesus does not ignore pain. He does not turn away from broken people. He does not abandon those who cry out to him, but he waits for something very specific. Trust. Not partial trust, not conditional trust, but full trust. The kind of trust that says, even if I don't understand, even if I don't see the solution, even if I feel afraid, I still believe you are good. And when Jesus hears that, he doesn't turn away. He leans in, because that kind of prayer opens the door of heaven. Now pause for a second. Think about your life. Is there something you've been carrying alone? Is there a wound you haven't talked about? Is there a fear that visits you at night when no one else sees? Bring that into your heart right now, not into your mind, into your heart. And imagine standing in front of Jesus. Not the distant Jesus, not the judge, but the gentle Jesus, the wounded Jesus, the loving Jesus. And you look at him and say, Jesus, I trust you. Not as a slogan, not as a habit, but as a surrender. That prayer, when it's real, Jesus cannot refuse, because love always responds to love. In the next block, we're going to go deeper. We're going to uncover why this prayer touches the heart of Christ so powerfully. what happens in the spiritual world when you pray with trust, and how this single sentence can transform fear into peace. Prepare your heart, because what's coming next is not information, it's transformation. There is a moment in every human life, a moment when words stop working. You try to explain your pain, but no one really understands. You try to be strong, but inside you feel weak. You try to believe, but doubt whispers louder than faith. And in that moment, prayer becomes difficult, not because you don't want to pray, but because you don't know how anymore. Your heart is tired, your soul is heavy, your mind is full of questions. And this is exactly where the prayer Jesus cannot refuse is born, not in comfort, but in crisis, not in control, but in surrender. You see, trust is not something you give God when life is easy. Trust is something you give God when life makes no sense at all. When you say, Jesus, I trust you, you're not saying everything is okay. You are saying, even if it's not okay, I believe you are still here. And heaven listens to that. Let me tell you something very deep. God is not moved first by your success. He is moved by your surrender. He is not impressed by how strong you look. He is touched by how honest you are. When you come to him broken, tired, confused, and you still say, Jesus, I trust you. That prayer goes straight to his heart, because it sounds like love, and love is the language of God. Think about it. A child doesn't understand everything the father does. A child doesn't know where the money comes from, or how the future will work. But when the child is scared, he runs into his father's arms and trusts him. That is prayer. Not explanation, not control, but relationship. When you say, Jesus, I trust you, you stop trying to manage the universe, and you start resting in the one who already does. And something incredible happens in the spiritual world at that moment. Your soul stops fighting and starts receiving. Your heart stops closing and starts opening. Your fear stops leading, and faith takes the first step. You may not see angels, you may not feel fireworks, but heaven moves, because trust gives God permission to act. Let me say that again slowly. Trust gives God permission to act, not because he needs your permission, but because love never forces itself. Jesus does not break down the door of your heart. He knocks, and when you open it with trust, he enters. Now let me speak to you personally for a moment. You listening to this right now, you are not here by accident. There is something in your life that needs healing. There is something in your soul that needs peace. There is something in your story that God wants to touch. And maybe you've been praying like this. Lord, fix my situation. Lord, change this person. Lord, take this problem away. But tonight, Jesus is inviting you to pray differently, not to demand, but to trust, not to argue, but to surrender, not to control, but to rest. Because when you trust Jesus, you stop asking, why is this happening? And you start saying, I don't understand, but I trust you. And that is a holy prayer. That is a powerful prayer. That is the prayer Jesus cannot refuse. Let me show you what trust does to your soul. When you trust Jesus, anxiety loses its grip, fear loses its voice, the past loses its power, and the future loses its threat. Not because everything changes instantly, but because you change. You stop being a prisoner of your circumstances, and you become a child in the arms of God. And that changes how you breathe, how you sleep, how you think, how you live. There are people listening to me right now, and your heart is tired of being strong. You've been strong for your family, strong for your friends, strong for everyone else. But inside, you're exhausted. And Jesus is saying to you tonight, you don't have to be strong anymore. You just have to trust me. That's all. Not perform, not impress, not prove anything, just trust, because when you trust, you stop carrying what was never yours to carry, and you place it in his hands, and his hands, they were made for that. In the next block, we're going even deeper into the heart of prayer. What it means to truly surrender. Why God sometimes allows silence. And how trust turns waiting into transformation. Stay with me. Your soul is being gently prepared. There is a sacred place in the spiritual life that very few people understand. It is the place where prayers are not answered right away, where tears fall quietly, where faith is tested in the dark. This is the place of waiting. And waiting is uncomfortable, because waiting feels like being forgotten. Waiting feels like standing in a room with no windows. Waiting feels like loving a God you cannot see and not hearing his voice. And yet, waiting is where the deepest trust is born. You see, when God answers immediately, you rejoice. But when God delays, you learn. You learn how to stay. You learn how to breathe. You learn how to believe without proof. And that is the kind of faith that transforms the soul. Let me speak to the part of you that is tired right now. You've been strong for too long. You've been patient for too long. You've been praying for something that still hasn't come. And sometimes your heart whispers, God, do you even see me? Yes, he does. But he is not working only on your situation. He is working on you, because if he gave you everything right now, you might lose the very thing he is trying to build inside you, a heart that trusts him without conditions. You see, God's delays are not denials, they are preparations. He is not closing the door on you, he is teaching you how to walk through it when the time is right. And this is where the prayer Jesus cannot refuse becomes even more powerful. Jesus, I trust you. Not after the miracle, not after the breakthrough, not after the answer, but before. When you say those words in the waiting, heaven listens differently. Because that prayer is no longer a request, it becomes an offering. You are saying, Lord, I give you my fear. Lord, I give you my timeline. Lord, I give you my control. And Jesus receives that, because love recognizes love. Let me show you something important. There are prayers that change situations, and there are prayers that change people. The first kind is powerful, but the second kind is eternal. And Jesus, I trust you, is a prayer that changes you. It reshapes how you see God. It reshapes how you see yourself. It reshapes how you walk through pain. When you trust Jesus in the waiting, you stop measuring life by outcomes and start measuring life by faithfulness. You stop asking, is this working? And start asking, am I staying close to him? And that is where peace begins. Let me talk to you about silence for a moment. Silence is not empty. Silence is full, full of things you cannot yet hear, full of movements you cannot yet see, full of answers that are still being formed. Sometimes God is quiet because he is working too deeply for words. He is healing wounds you don't even remember. He is untangling patterns you don't even see. He is preparing blessings you're not ready to carry yet. And in that silence, he is asking only one thing of you: trust. Not understanding, not control, not certainty, trust. Because trust says, even if you don't explain, I will stay. Even if you don't hurry, I will wait. Even if you don't answer the way I want, I will believe you love me. And that kind of prayer, Jesus cannot refuse, because it is not trying to move his hand, it is trying to rest in his heart. Now let me speak directly to your soul. You are not too broken for God. You are not too late for God. You are not too far from God. If you are listening to this right now, God is already close, closer than your fear, closer than your doubt, closer than your past, and he is inviting you to stop running inside your own thoughts and start resting in his presence. You don't need better words. You don't need perfect faith. You just need a willing heart that says, Jesus, I trust you. Let that be your prayer when you wake up. Let that be your prayer when you're afraid. Let that be your prayer when you don't know what to do next. Because every time you say it sincerely, heaven bends close, not to judge you, not to correct you, not to pressure you, but to hold you, and that changes everything. So right now, wherever you are, pause, breathe, and say it slowly and from your heart. Jesus, I trust you. With your pain, with your past, with your waiting, with your future. That prayer, Jesus cannot refuse, because it is love, speaking to love, and love always responds. If this message touched your heart, if you felt peace, comfort, or hope while listening, subscribe to this channel now. Walk this journey of faith with us, and let Jesus transform your life, one prayer at a time.